Greetings. Let me put my caption in before I forget. All right. Wow. And then look what it did. I be trying, y'all. Hi, respect your crown. Okay, I'm sorry, Miss Wanda. I'm trying to correct your name because I see that it put it all together. 1 second. Okay. All right. So let's see if I can bring you in on Instagram. Hey, Demetra. So it says waiting. Hi. Hey, Sierra. Okay, cool. No, we got it.
Yay! We did it.
No, we survived.
We survived. I don't know what was wrong with Facebook. I don't know.
And it's crazy because like I have all these lives to do. Normally it would be okay, but I'm like the lives to do. Like I don't know. But I'm gonna try to reach out to their support team as well.
Okay.
But to right into things, well, I didn't get to do an intro, but just to tell you all a little bit about Miss Wanda Edwards. Miss Wanda is a part of the Crazy Like a Fox tour. She's one of the panelists, and so the Crazy Like a Fox tour is centered around Black mental health, and it's gonna be a series of panels taking place in 4 different cities: Atlanta, Charlotte, Philly, and Baltimore. And I'm sorry, Miss Wanda, which location, which stop are you going to be on?
I'm going to be in Atlanta.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so first up, all right.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, and also I always ask people, how would you describe your swagger? So,
you know what? I love that question. But anyway, so my name is Wanda Edwards. I am a domestic violence survivor. I am also someone who lives with, I'm trying to move away from saying struggles with, or I live with depression. I navigate depression on a daily basis. I have 3 children. I have 3 grandchildren. I'm a certified domestic violence advocate, and I do a lot of work with women, what I like to say, that are in like crisis transition, whether it's just trying to identify, a mental health issue, substance abuse, or being a victim and or survivor of domestic violence. It's something that's really important to me. I've done a documentary on it, and just recently wrote a play called Not Just October that did really well last year. So we're going to be bringing it back again this year, and I'm really excited about it.
Gotcha. And so now, of course, because I've read your bio and so on, but can you tell us a little bit about, like you mentioned that what your work is, but can you tell us a little bit how you got started within it, the fact that you have, I guess, survived a relationship that, contained abuse, but can you tell us a little bit more of your backstory with that?
Sure. So, it's funny. I didn't even realize that, like, I had a story. I didn't even realize what it was that I was going through, because domestic violence, what I came to find out, was so isolating that I really thought that I was unique. I thought that what I was going through was something totally unheard of. But I met my husband when I was 17, actually. We ended up getting married when I was 20. And, in hindsight, I saw warning signs, like just certain behaviors, but I didn't know what they were because they weren't directed towards me. So I kind of misread them. And initially I was completely caught off guard. I really was. I was in love, and I didn't see anything wrong. I didn't really know how this interaction was supposed to be. My father died when I was 9 years old. My brother was a lot older than me, so I didn't really have a point of reference. And I was really caught off guard. And I always say that for a while my life was like one of those Lifetime movies. Like, my daughters and I, we were literally on the run for years, just trying to get away from the abuse, not really wanting the relationship to stop because I loved him. I just didn't understand this negative side, this dark side. I didn't get it. And it really wasn't until years later, because trying to cope with it is where drugs and alcohol came in. So now it just became this vicious cycle of just trying to survive from one day to the next.
So the abuse brought on your depression, and you were using, you know, like the alcohol and drugs in order to be able to cope with things, right?
Yeah, but you know what? Honestly, Fancy, again, I believe that my depression started very early. Like I said, my dad died when I was 9 years old. There was some sexual molestation by uncles, and not like play uncles, but like blood uncles. When I was 16, I had an abortion that was very traumatic, and I don't think that anyone in my circle family, it wasn't something that we talked about. So no one would know to say she's depressed. But looking back, that's when I started smoking weed and drinking beer, acting out in school. There were certain things that took place around that time that it was just looked at as she's just bad. She's bad. She's a rebel. She's a bad girl. But the reality is that something was wrong. And I was trying to mask it. I was trying to make myself feel better by doing self-destructive behavior. So I really think that it started then.
Wow. And just kind of thinking, and of course, I mean, this is not my field or anything. I'm certain you probably know a lot more about this than I do. But just what you haven't said that about, with you all having met so early, but also the fact that oftentimes they say that abusers can kind of, you can kind of read a person. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm not going to say necessarily this is what a person may endure, but do you think that you possibly also may have given some of that off because you were, dealing with other things as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, again, through my healing process and through my journey, what I've come to understand is that whether you're a victim or whether you're an abuser, something happened. Something happened in your childhood that you were not able to process. And so your behaviors became destructive. Looking back again with my ex-husband, his mother was verbally abusive and physically abusive to him and his brother. So now you have someone with low self-esteem that really has no concept of self, and then someone else who has a disdain for women. So we meet, and it was, for victim abuser, we were classic. We were classic. He's looking to control, and I'm just looking for protection. So, but we don't know how to do that healthy. We don't know how to find that. So I absolutely gave off something. I absolutely did. And so did he. What I was looking for, protection in a man.
Right. And that makes a lot. So how long were you all married?
We were married legally for 6 years. And in that 6-year time frame, there was a lot of, really me running kind of back and forth. He would always find me until, the last time that I left. It took me, I want to say, at least 5 or 6 times of leaving before I actually stayed gone. And at that last time, I literally escaped. And I didn't know that I was planning. I didn't know that it was called something. I just knew that I had to leave and stay gone. And my brother was getting married. I knew that he would let me go to my brother's wedding. So about a month or so before the wedding, my aunt and my mother used to come and take stuff out of the house while he was at work. And when I went to my brother's wedding, I ended up going to a shelter after that with my daughters. And then even years after that, he would find me, and there was still friction. There was still trying to intimidate. But the more that I stayed away and started my healing process with counseling and things like that, I felt a little bit stronger. So I was able to stay gone that last time, but it was probably about 5 or 6 times of me leaving and going back before I actually left and stayed gone.
Wow. And I remember just from, another interview that I did, whereas the guest was telling me that she didn't realize, and I know you kind of mentioned this too, but she was saying that she wasn't aware of domestic violence until like she happened to see a flyer while she was getting her mammogram done. And that was kind of like that light bulb for her going off and realizing that she needed to get out. Did you have a situation similar? I mean, or did you ever get any type of assistance throughout that process? I understand your family, was helping, but were they aware of things ahead of time?
No. And my family basically followed my lead. And that's what I learned too, as a victim, that there's nothing anybody really can do until the victim decides that this is what they want to do. Because
right.
My family, while they did not disown me or anything like that, they didn't stop talking to me or anything like that, but they followed my lead. So they didn't try to stop anything, and they didn't try to make me do anything. They just followed my lead. When I left and went down to my brother's and I went into a shelter, at the time that I was going through this, it wasn't called domestic violence. It wasn't called intimate partner violence. They called it battered women syndrome. And, so I had counselors telling me this, but to be honest with you, I was just taking in information. I didn't really start to process anything probably until maybe, I want to say, even 10 or 12 years after all of this happened, that I actually started to process what happened to me and that I had been a victim of abuse. I knew that what was happening was wrong. I knew that I needed to get away from it. So that's what I did. But for years, I was just going through the motion. I didn't have the emotional maturity to really deal with it. And that's where the drugs and alcohol just started to get worse, because it was a lot. It was heavy. It was very, very heavy. It was heavy. And I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to think about it.
Wow.
I wanted to be someone else. So yeah, it was a long time before I was actually able to process it.
So tell us a little bit about A Walk in Her Shoes, your organization.
So A Walk in Her Shoes was actually started when I moved to Arizona. So I moved out to Arizona, I guess it's been about 8 years now, 10 years ago now. And that was really the beginning of my journey in terms of being an advocate or reaching out to other women. And it really it kind of started with this like feeling to do something. And so I started A Walk in Her Shoes as like a support. It was more like a support group for women who had gone through this. And then I started doing a lot of volunteer work out there. And A Walk in Her Shoes was actually the catalyst for the documentary that I did, because the documentary was called Colors of Survival. And it started out in Arizona, where it was 4 women who told their stories. And we kind of followed them through their process of healing. One of them had to go to court. So we kind of followed their process, and we did interviews. So that was actually the foundation for A Walk in Her Shoes, was this documentary that I did. And then I did some volunteer work out there as well.
So where can we find the documentary? Like, where can we watch it?
I'm actually going to start to show it again, because what happened was one of the ladies that was on there, due to safety reasons, we had to edit her out and we had to stop showing it. So, but it's funny you asked, because we just finished the final edit, and I'm going to start to show it again. So I'll definitely be having a watch party. I'll probably just put a link up for it, because it's really short. It's only about 25 minutes now, but it's a good documentary. It really is. It covers a lot of different aspects, if you will, of domestic violence, the different journeys and different things that people can go through, because every situation is different.
Right. And that's so true. And that's kind of what I was excuse me, like, even with this tour, just the fact of most of the panelists, everybody has a different I guess you say aspect or angle to talk about,
right,
what or their trauma, or whatever it was that they went through, and then how that played a toll on their mental health. And
right.
and I think that's just like, really, to me, that is one of the coolest things, because as I've just been reading and just seeing different things, some people may have handled their situation or handled their healing process through religion. You know, other people may have gone through holistic practices or counseling or therapy and different things. And so I just think that with the tour itself, it's like really shedding light, but then also shedding light from the perspective of a Black woman, which
Absolutely.
I think also really cool because you know, just seems like within the Black community, we've just really started talking about therapy. And I know you mentioned a counselor, but did you go like to you know, was it just domestic violence counseling?
I went to quite a few counselors, and I recommend therapy. I think it's very important. I struggled with it in the beginning because, again, this was so far removed from what I thought my life was going to be like, that when I would go to counseling and we would get to a certain point in the story, when it was really time to like go deep,
You resist?
I'm not coming back. And I would tell them, yeah, okay, we're not talking about that. But I finally found a counselor. And I think, again, it had to do with me kind of getting to that point where, okay, I'm doing work, but I'm doing work with other women. And I know that I'm helping them, but I'm still struggling. Like I still have some layers that I have to deal with. And so that's when I really had to kind of go deep. And listen, it was not pretty because at this point, I'm free from drugs and alcohol. You know, the relationship is over. So the only thing I had was really, I had to sit with this. And I have to tell you, though, that that was probably the most freeing experience because really, 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 like for real, walking in your truth, nobody can hurt you. When you
Right.
embrace your truth and you own it, nobody can hurt you. They can't take you to that place, you know? And once I realized that, I was like a running faucet. I was like, what you want to know? What you want to know?
Oh, look, I'm sorry.
What you want to know? So that was.
Sorry. My light has gone out. I apologize.
That's okay. I was like, wait, where'd she go?
Yeah. It's trying to come back on. Just a minute.
I see you a little bit. I see a shadow. Oh, there you go. There you go. But yeah, so
Lala just joined in. She's on our team. Watch, I could just hear her telling me later on, like, make certain that your computer charged up and da-da-da. But okay.
But yeah, so I did get to the point where, you know, I just had to let it go. You know, I had to embrace that. Yes, this is what happened to me. Yes, I live with depression. But it no longer defines me. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't diminish my shine, my courage, or my strength or anything because I'm able to say, you know, today's not a good day. There's some days are better than others. And I don't beat myself up about it anymore. If I'm having a bad day, then I'm having a bad day. And that's it. There's no, like the shame, the guilt, all of that. It's gone. You can't, I've embraced my truth. You can't hurt me. You can't hurt me.
You know, I'm so glad that you just mentioned it because that's something that, even though I feel like I've embraced my truth, that's one aspect that I have not been able like to really grasp as far as